Rangers followed up that shock loss to Ross County by drawing 0-0 at Dens Park, Dundee last night. What does that mean? Celtic now lead the way by 3 points in Scotland. They host Rangers on May the 11th. Rangers have got to win that. They also have a superior goal difference over Rangers. They have a lot to do. Philippe Clement last night up in Dundee saying, "No, stick with us."
They need to stick behind the team. That's very important because the team is giving everything. I was disappointed and angry after Ross County. That was also really clear, but they need to stick behind the team. And that's the only way to get what the fans dream of. And this team has done a lot for that last couple of months. We have an important game on Sunday again with the semi-final in the Cup. And we need to all stick together to let this club and this team grow to become champions again. That's not work of 1 or 2 days or 1 or 2 months. That's longer work, but there's already a lot of work done, and we need to continue in that way.
So, Simon, Philippe Clement, who I think is someone you quite like.
I do.
But saying there, we've all got to stick together. There's a cup semi-final this weekend. Want to win that, get to the final, win that.
Yeah.
And we'd like the fans to stick with us as we attempt to win the title. With Celtic now in pole position. But for the first time this morning, are you looking at Clement thinking, well, hang on, you carry the can a bit here as well?
Of course he has to. The team reflects leadership. And whilst you use it very easy, and I'm very happy to apportion significant amounts of blame to players and their approach to games.
Yeah.
He's the manager. It's his team. And the performance against Ross County was unacceptable. To lose that game, no disrespect to Ross County, but they should be cannon fodder for Rangers. And they weren't. And his reaction was one of disappointment. And you would have expected a bounce back. You would have expected, not just because of all the noise around this fixture and all that went on last week, but because they needed a bounce back. You're trying to win the league. You just handed it back to Celtic. So to win this league now, most likely, despite the protestations of Souness that it twists and turns, and he's probably right, but I think now people will be set in stone. They'll probably all go and win their games going forward, even though we've seen a performance from the last 2 games that doesn't necessarily to tell that. But they haven't laid a glove on Celtic.
No.
So they ain't going to go up to Celtic if they match one another's results and beat them 5. So really and truly, they've handed the title back to Celtic.
Yeah, they have.
And Brendan Rodgers,
You're
who
right.
I think has been a bit of a flake for the last 18 months, gets out from underneath it.
Yeah, you mentioned Graham Souness there. Of course, Souness has got a £10,000 charity bet on with Sir Rod Stewart. Celtic loving Sir Rod. Sir Rod says, my 10 grand, which will go to charity, says Celtic will win the league. Souness is saying Rangers. But as you might imagine, just before we came on air this morning, Sir Rod, who watched every ball kicked at Dens Park last night, couldn't wait to give us his reaction.
I was stunned. I mean, I watched the whole match last night. Obviously, I wanted Rangers to come unstuck, but I never dreamt in a million years that they would. They looked very lethargic. Mind you, Jim, it's not over yet, mate. We got to play Hearts. We got to play Kilmarnock. They caused us trouble, but I really didn't expect them to come unstuck.
I mean, you say that, but surely now, sensible wisdom is it's Celtic's title, is it not?
No, as I just said, I don't think so. You know, give me a couple of weeks' time maybe, but, you know, it could all turn around. There's only 3 points, 4 points, and the goal difference is pretty good now, but anything can happen. Hearts have given us problems, and they will again. Hopefully give Rangers problems on Sunday.
Did you fear, Rod, that this fella, Philippe Clement, was the one who would get it right with Rangers and that Rangers would do what they did with Gerrard and win a league title?
Yeah, I did. And I still think he's got it right. I hate to say this. I think the players have let him down somewhat. They look tired. And I think they lack width. You know, they don't seem to have any great wingers like Celtic do. But, Jim, I've got to tell you, mate, it's not all over yet. 2 or 3 weeks' time, I'll come on and celebrate with you. Well, not you, because you're a Rangers supporter.
But do you feel that Celtic, Sir Rod, have got Rangers' number at the moment? And no matter what, Rangers appear not to be able to bridge the gap?
It would appear that way, and especially as we've got them at Celtic, it'll be a sellout crowd, obviously, and it'll be a pretty intimidating atmosphere. Whereas we went to Ibrox, and I thought we were superb in the first half. And then Rangers were superb in the second half. And again, Jim, it's not all over, son.
Listen, Rod, have you been in touch with Souness about that charity bet?
Yeah, I think he'll go somewhat quiet, like a lot of the Rangers pundits have, like Alan McCoy. I don't think you'll get him to go up to 20 now after the last 3 games.
And that's not 20 quid, it's 20 grand, but it's for charity. I think the question is this, Simon. How do Rangers bridge this gap? I mean, they've done it. They've snatched defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yeah, and so, as Rod Stewart says, it's not done, and there may well be another twist and turn. But the conversation that we're having is because Rangers have taken 1 point from 6 in 2 games that they should have won. They shouldn't be getting beat by Ross County. They just shouldn't, with due respect to the team that's sitting at the second to bottom or bottom of the league in the Scottish Premier League that are there to be beaten. You have to question yourselves why and Dundee, okay, you take a point at Dundee, but you don't lose to Ross County, and then the conversation is different. The reasons why the conversation now abounds about where Rangers, what happens next, is because Rangers open the door to it. They've opened the door to a situation which was in their control. It's no longer in their control anymore. It's potentially in Celtic's control. Celtic do their job, Rangers do their job, Celtic win the league.
Yeah. Rangers have won the title once in the last 12 years.
Yeah.
Celtic winning it 11 times. Does it put a different perspective in Steven Gerrard's title achievement? He did win it. He won it.
I think the perspective for Steven Gerrard was he won the Scottish Premier League. That's what he was brought there to do. And in the context of what's happened to Rangers during a significant period of those years, it's a sort of a moot argument, isn't it? Because how many of those years were they not available to compete for it? A few.
Yeah.
And that's in part why I want Rangers to win the league this year. I wanted Rangers to win this league this year because I'd like to see the 2 Scottish giants, equally as strong as one another, because it drags everybody else up. I don't want the top pulled down. I want the bottom pulled up in Scottish football. Yeah. I want more money into Scottish football. I want the other teams in the pyramid to be better. I want this factory of young Scottish players coming through that we saw that produced the Hansons, the Souness's, the Dalgleishes, the Danny McGrains, and whoever else we want to talk about that have been great Scottish players over the years. I want to see another factory of that being produced. And that part of that will be if the Scottish League is better funded. So part of that will be if the 2 top-end Scottish teams are good in Europe, good in their leagues, competitive full stop, and you've got a competitive league. And so that's in part the reasons why I wanted Rangers to be successful. And the other part is because Brendan Rodgers has been irritating me recently, because I think he was a flake at Leicester and I think he's been lucky at Celtic.
So Rod is going to go...
that's just my view.
Out of his way to go to Celtic Rangers at Celtic Park, which obviously you have to heavily tip Celtic to win. He's on tour at the time. He flies over to the game and then flies back to Antwerp in Belgium, does a gig that night. But
imagine if he went back and they got spanked 5-0, how much he'd be singing that concert.
Well, he sings in the plane. He sings in the plane after he goes to the Celtic game. And
but it'd be a different kind of singing, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be quite so upbeat. So he goes there to watch his team full of himself and his team results, get beat 5 and flies back to his concert. And they'd really be singing Maggie May in a really downbeat way.
Listen, one thing you are an extremely effective owner. You'd be quite a legislator in the game. How do Celtic and Rangers attempt to get more money out of the game?
Well, Celtic and Rangers don't have a problem getting money out of the game. Celtic and Rangers are okay. Celtic and Rangers are doing relatively well, comparable with the wages they have to pay. Quite frankly, if you look at what was happening in other leagues, Celtic and Rangers are not quite the poor relations that you would think them to be, 60, 80 million pound turnovers. It's the rest of the Scottish League that's got a problem, and Celtic and Rangers couldn't give a fig about the rest of the Scottish League, could they really?
Probably not. I'm glad you said fig.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.